She doesn't even have a college degree. Why is she even in our meetings? Asterisk laughter echoed through the oak panel boardroom. One of the directors, a smug man in a tight gray suit, took a long sip from his coffee and added, honestly, just a janitor with a clipboard. Does she think cleaning floors gives her business opinions? Asterisk, they laughed again. A group of six, all dressed too sharp for the dirty things they were saying. No one noticed the janitor standing quietly by the men's door. She didn't flinch, she didn't speak, just looked straight at them with those calm, steady eyes. Like she was counting something, asterisk. When one of them finally realized she'd heard everything, he cleared his throat. You can leave now. Asterisk, she gave a small nod and turned away. Asterisk, no reaction. No emotion, asterisk, that silence. It wasn't weakness because something had shifted. She didn't go back to cleaning. She didn't head to the janitor's closet, asterisk, she walked straight into the CEO's office, the real one. Not the one these little directors pretended to rule from, asterisk, what she said inside that room. No one knows for sure, asterisk, but the next morning, when the board arrived for their 9 a.m. meeting, there was already someone waiting, asterisk security guards. 4 of them, asterisk, and the janitor still in uniform was standing beside them, holding a stack of official documents, asterisk. Good morning, she said calmly. You don't work here anymore. They froze. One of the directors laughed nervously. Is this a joke? She didn't answer. She just handed each of them an envelope. Inside, termination letters, signed, legal, final, asterisk. One director's face turned red. You can't do this. You're a janitor. She smiled. No, not anymore. The room went dead silent. You're bluffing, one of the board members said, his voice rising with panic. This isn't even legal. Where's Mr. Wexler? The CEO, he'd never allow this. Asterisk, she stepped forward, calm as ever. Mr. Wexler retired yesterday. Asterisk, the man blinked. What? Asterisk, she nodded slowly. And he sold his shares, all of them. Asterisk, another director, the youngest one, rushed to grab his phone. This is a setup. I'm calling legal right now. Asterisk, before he could dial, the head of security spoke firmly. I wouldn't recommend. That, sir, you're trespassing now. Asterisk, what? Asterisk, the janitor now. The woman who used to be the janitor finally said what none of them were prepared for, asterisk. My name is Liana Reyes. As of 6 a.m. today, I am the majority shareholder of this company. Asterisk, the director who mocked her most looked like he'd seen a ghost. You bought the company? Asterisk, I inherited it, she said simply, folding her hands in front of her. From my uncle. Asterisk, who's your uncle? Asterisk, she tilted her head. Slightly, William Wexler. One of them gasped. That's impossible. Wexler never had kids. Asterisk, he didn't, she replied, but he raised one. Asterisk, the smug one in the gray suit stepped forward. You mean to tell us the man who built this empire left it to his janitor niece? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. No, he left it to his daughter. They all looked like the floor just dropped beneath them. And before you say anything stupid, she added, turning toward the head of security, please escort them off the property. They started yelling over each other. You can't. Asterisk, this is a mistake, asterisk, we'll sue. But none of it mattered. As they were let out one by one, Liana stayed in place, calm, composed, watching them with the same silent stare. They once mocked, asterisk, and just before the last man walked out the door, she said it softly, but with razor-sharp precision, asterisk, I cleaned your messes for 5 years. Now I'll clean this company. Asterisk, by noon, the news had already started leaking. Asterisk, former janitor takes control of multi-million-dollar firm in shocking twist. One blog headline read, but inside the company walls, the real story was only just beginning. Liana sat alone in the boardroom, now the same one where they laughed at her just a day earlier, except now their chairs were empty. Their nameplates were gone, and in front of her sat a thick black binder labeled Confidential. Board activities minus 2022 to present. Asterisk. She opened it slowly. Page after page of shady decisions, unauthorized bonuses, ghost employees, hidden accounts offshore. It wasn't just arrogance. It was corruption. Asterisk. No wonder they laughed so hard. They thought no one would ever find out. Asterisk. And they definitely never imagined she would. Asterisk. As she flipped to a page marked with a red tab, her eyes narrowed. There it was proof that they deliberately voted against funding the pension plan for lower-level staff, just so they could increase their own quarterly bonuses. Asterisk, she whispered under her breath. You took from the people who kept this place running. Asterisk, just then, her phone buzzed. A message from the internal audit team. Asterisk, we found something bigger. We need to meet. Asterisk, she replied instantly. Conference room C, 10 minutes. Asterisk, but before she stood, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small object, something old and a little worn. A janitor's ID badge. Asterisk, her name was faded, but still visible. Liana Reyes, facilities staff. She stared at it for a second, then placed it gently on the polished wood table and left it there. Asterisk, as she walked down the hall, every employee she passed looked stunned. They had seen the news. They had heard the rumors. But seeing her now in charge, confident, commanding, was something else entirely. Asterisk. One of the front desk workers hesitated, then said softly, Ms. Reyes, is it true? You're the owner now? Asterisk. Liana stopped, smiled kindly. Asterisk. Not just the owner, she said. I'm here to fix what they broke. Asterisk, and with that, she turned and pushed open the door to conference room C, where an even darker twist was waiting for her. Asterisk, inside conference room C. The atmosphere was tense. Asterisk. 3 members of the internal audit team stood waiting, 2 seated, 1 pacing. The folder on the table was thick, with yellow sticky notes poking out from every side. Liana walked in without a word, nodded, and closed the door behind her. Asterisk. We didn't want to believe it at first, the lead auditor began. But once we traced the offshore accounts, it's clear. This wasn't just about bonuses or shady votes. He slid the folder across the table. It's embezzlement, millions, over 6 years. And we think Wexler didn't know. Asterisk. Liana's jaw tightened. Who was running the show? Asterisk. The pacing auditor finally stopped. Your head of finance, Greg Harmon, along with 3 of the directors you just fired. They set up dummy corporations overseas, funneled company funds, fake consulting contracts, false supplier chains. Asterisk. They bled the company dry, the other one added, and tried to hide it behind the janitorial department's budget. Asterisk. Liana's eyes darkened. They used my department? Asterisk. Exactly. The expenses were disguised as equipment upgrades and vendor services. No one questioned it because who checks the janitor invoices? Asterisk. Her stomach twisted. They hadn't just laughed at her. They'd used her title as camouflage for their crimes. Asterisk. And now it all made sense. Why they mocked her. Why they tried to keep her away from board meetings. Why they panicked the second she stepped into power. Asterisk. They weren't afraid of her. Asterisk. They were afraid of what she'd find. Asterisk. She looked at the lead auditor. Do we have enough proof? Asterisk. He nodded. Every transfer, every name. If you take this to the district attorney, they'll have no choice but to press charges. Asterisk. Liana stood up slowly. Her voice was cold now. Controlled. The fire was building, but it wasn't rage. It was purpose, asterisk, then we do it, she said. No more covering. Up, no more protecting names. Asterisk, she walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot, the same one where she used to sweep leaves in the freezing cold while those men parked their luxury cars and stepped over her like she was invisible. Asterisk, they thought they buried me. She whispered. Behind her, the audit team watched in silence. But I wasn't buried, she said. I was planted. Asterisk, the next morning, chaos hit the headlines. Asterisk, financial crimes uncovered in corporate giant, arrest warrants issued. Asterisk, janitor turned CEO exposes massive embezzlement ring. Asterisk, justice served, 4 executives in custody. After secret audit, asterisk Liana sat in her office now watching the live footage. One by one, the disgraced former directors were being led out of their homes in handcuffs. Gray suit guy, the one who mocked her the most, tried to hide his face behind his briefcase. Cameras still caught everything. Asterisk, Mr. Harmon, a reporter, shouted, "Do you have anything to say to the people you stole from?" He didn't answer, but millions were watching. Asterisk back at the company, employees gathered in the cafeteria, staring at the wall-mounted TVs, janitors, receptionists, mailroom, workers. Most of them didn't even know what had been going on, but now they saw the truth. And the person who exposed it wasn't a lawyer or some billionaire investor. Asterisk. It was one of them. Asterisk. I can't believe she did it, whispered one maintenance worker. She got them all. Asterisk, she didn't just get them, another said. She saved the company. Asterisk, that afternoon, Liana held a town hall meeting. No suit, no rehearsed speech. Just her in a navy blouse and jeans, standing on the small auditorium stage, facing the entire staff. Asterisk, I worked here for 5 years, she began, voice clear. You passed me in hallways. Some of you talked to me, some didn't. That's okay. She paused, but I saw everything. I saw how some of you were overworked. I saw how the budget never had room for raises. I saw the broken elevators that stayed broken, the vending machines that never worked. I saw how people got laid off while others took trips on the company's dime. She took a breath and her voice softened. You were never invisible to me, and I promise, from this day forward, no one else will be either. Asterisk, the room erupted into applause. Some stood. A few even cried. Asterisk, and somewhere in the back, the night shift janitor wiped his eyes and whispered, she did what no one else ever dared. But just when it seemed the storm had passed, Liana's assistant came rushing up to the stage, phone in hand, face pale. Asterisk, there's someone here, she whispered. And it's about Mr. Wexler's will. There's something wrong. Asterisk, Liana's smile faded. Asterisk, what do you mean wrong? The assistant held up the phone. Apparently, you weren't the only one he left the company to. Asterisk, the room that had just been filled with clapping fell silent again, not from fear, but from tension. Liana's eyes locked onto the assistant's, scanning her face for any sign of a joke. Asterisk, there's someone else? She asked slowly. Asterisk, her assistant nodded, holding out the phone. The estate lawyer is downstairs. He says Wexler left a sealed letter and a secondary clause in the will. It wasn't supposed to be opened unless you took control of the board. Liana's heart kicked a little harder in her chest. What clause? Asterisk, they won't say over the phone. They need to show it to you in person. Asterisk, without a word, Liana stepped off the stage, gave the crowd a brief nod, and followed her assistant through the halls. Her steps were steady, but her mind raced. Asterisk, Wexler had raised her, trusted her, chosen her. Asterisk, so what did he hide? Asterisk, she entered the legal conference room, where 2 men in suits stood beside a metal briefcase and a folder marked Private Wexler Estate. One of them, older with wire-rimmed glasses, gave a polite nod. Asterisk, Miss Reyes, thank you for coming. I'm Mitchell Glenn, executor of Mr. Wexler's estate. Asterisk, what's this about? She asked, arms crossed. Asterisk, he opened the folder, revealing a letter written in Wexler's familiar handwriting. Asterisk, this letter and clause were part of a contingency only, to be revealed in the event you assumed majority control of the company. Asterisk, he handed it to her. She opened it slowly. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Wexler's voice right there on the page. Asterisk, Liana, if you're reading this, then you've done what I always knew you could. That power attracts shadows, and there's something you need to know. You were never my only heir. There's one more, and he may already be watching you. Liana's breath caught. Wexler had a son? Asterisk, she looked up, eyes narrowed. Who is he? Asterisk, the lawyer hesitated. That's the thing. We're not entirely sure. But someone just came forward this morning with documents, claiming to be your half-brother and with rights to a portion of the company. Asterisk, where is he now? Asterisk, in the lobby. Asterisk, Liana turned slowly toward the window, heart pounding harder now. Not out of fear, but preparation. Another game was starting. Another shadow stepping onto the board. And just before walking out to face him, she whispered to herself, if you're really his son, then let's see what kind of player you are. Asterisk, the lobby was buzzing. Staff whispered in corners, trying not to stare, but failing miserably. Security stood alert at each door, already briefed, already watching. And in the center of it, all calm, casual, and smiling, stood a man in a perfectly fitted navy blazer. Hands in his pockets, like he owned the place. Asterisk, Liana stepped off the elevator and headed straight toward him. Asterisk, he turned before she even said a word. Liana Reyes, he said smoothly. You look exactly how he described you. Asterisk, she stopped a few feet away, arms crossed. And you are? Asterisk, he extended a hand. Cole Whitman. At least that's the name my mother gave me. But legally now, Cole Wexler. She didn't shake his hand. You came out of nowhere. She said, Asterisk, I've been watching from the sidelines, he replied, completely unfazed, waiting for the old man to pass. I figured when he did, the vultures on the board would eat each other alive. Never thought you'd be the one left standing. Asterisk, I earned my way here. Asterisk, no argument from me, he said, raising his hands. I respect the move. Brilliant, actually. You played them all? Asterisk, I didn't play anyone, she snapped. I protected what he built. Asterisk, Cole smiled wider. And now I'm here to claim my part of it. Asterisk, she studied him. Too polished, too confident. He didn't seem surprised, didn't ask questions. He knew exactly what he was walking into. Asterisk, you're not just here for your name, she said slowly. You've been planning something. Asterisk, he tilted his head, amused. Smart and sharp, you're right. I've been buying up shares, quietly, through proxies. I'm sitting at 14%. Not enough to dethrone you, but enough to cause some noise. She felt her jaw clench. I don't want control, he said casually. I want partnership. I want in. At the top. Co-CEO. Asterisk, Liana almost laughed. You want to run the company with me? Asterisk, I want to grow it. We're both heirs to the same empire, Liana, but I bring what you don't: external investment, Silicon Valley partnerships, overseas logistics. You're the heart. I'm the brain. Asterisk, she stepped closer. You're the vulture who circled until my father died. Asterisk, his eyes darkened, just slightly. He was my father too. Asterisk, they stood there, two strangers linked by blood and ambition. The crowd around them silent, sensing the collision about to happen. Asterisk, then Cole leaned in and said just loud enough for her to hear, asterisk. You took down the board, respect, but you're not the only one with secrets. And with that, he turned and walked away. Liana stood frozen in place, her mind racing, asterisk. You're not the only one with secrets. Those words echoed louder than the buzz of the lobby. She turned sharply and marched back to the elevator, barely acknowledging the whispers around her. If Cole had been preparing in the shadows, she needed to know everything, how deep he'd gone, what he had on her, and most importantly, what his real plan was. Asterisk back in her office, she called her. Head of cybersecurity. Asterisk. I want full digital tracing on Cole Whitman. All aliases, all known associates. I want every transaction from the last 2 years, including proxy accounts. Start with shell companies linked to Wexler Industries. Asterisk, the tech guy hesitated. That might take a while. Asterisk, you have until morning, she said flatly. Asterisk, then she called legal. Reopen my father's estate files. Look for any addendums made in the last 12 months. I don't care how buried they are. Asterisk, by sunset, she had a thick folder of Cole's movements. And one name popped up again and again. Bradley Mays, former board member. The one who resigned 2 years ago, citing health concerns. But now he was back on Cole's financial radar, listed as a silent investor in 2 of Cole's shell ventures. She stared at the file. Bradley had been the one who first tried to block her from entering board meetings back when she was just a janitor. The same man who voted to outsource dozens of company jobs overseas. It wasn't a coincidence. Cole hadn't come to join her. He came to finish what the old board started. The next morning, she walked into the boardroom where Cole sat waiting, legs crossed, sipping coffee like he belonged there. This time she didn't hesitate. I know about Mays, she said. He didn't blink. He's a good strategist. Asterisk. He's a snake. Asterisk. Cole smirked. Snakes make good partners in war. Asterisk. You really think this is war? Asterisk. I think it's business, he said smoothly. And in business, one of us is going to win. It can be both, or it can be one. Asterisk, she stepped closer. I've already fought men like you. I buried them with truth and proof. Asterisk. Cole's smile widened, but there was steel in his eyes now. Then you better hope your truth is cleaner than mine. Because if we both start digging, he stood up slowly. Let's just say you're not the only one with old ghosts buried under this company. For the next 3 days, tension ran like an undercurrent through every hallway. Asterisk. Cole had started making moves, quiet lunches with senior managers, mysterious late-night visits to the analytics team, and, worst of all, whispers that some departments were considering backing his joint leadership proposal. Liana wasn't blind. She could feel the shift. Asterisk. The same people who once avoided her in the janitor's uniform were now watching the power struggle like spectators, waiting to see which heir would come out on top. Asterisk. But Liana wasn't going to let her father's legacy become a chessboard for greed. Asterisk. She called a full staff meeting. Every floor, every department. No excuses. Asterisk. When she stepped onto the stage that Friday morning, the auditorium was packed. Even Cole stood near the side wall, arms folded, expression unreadable. Liana took a breath. I want to tell you all a story, she began, one that most of you have never heard. And she did. She told them about being raised by William Wexler after her mother died, about sweeping floors to earn her way instead of asking for favors, about being mocked in boardrooms, ignored in hallways, and overlooked by the very people whose jobs she protected behind the scenes. Asterisk. Then she opened the folder she'd been carrying. It wasn't a business report. It was a full internal review. Not just on the embezzlement scandal, but on every department's real performance. The numbers didn't lie. Asterisk under her brief leadership, productivity was up 12%. Employee satisfaction had jumped, turnover was down. For the first time in 5 years, lower-level staff had received raises. And it was all backed by hard data, asterisk. This company doesn't need two leaders fighting for control, she said, her voice steady. It needs one who sees every worker, one who doesn't just sit at the top, but remembers what it feels like to stand at the bottom. She looked straight at Cole. You wanted a war. I wanted a company worth fighting for. Asterisk, the room was still. Asterisk, then came a slow clap. It started in the back, then grew. Within seconds, the auditorium was on its feet, and Cole, asterisk, he didn't clap. But he didn't speak either, asterisk, because the truth was, it wasn't a business meeting anymore. It was a reckoning, asterisk. Later that evening, security handed her a note left on her desk. Cole had left the building. You win this round. But the Wexler name isn't done yet. She folded it calmly and slid it into the drawer. Let him watch from the shadows, asterisk, because now everyone in that building knew whose name would shape its future, asterisk. And as she locked the office for the night, she whispered the line her father once told her when she was 12, mopping floors for extra lunch money. Asterisk. Power means nothing if you don't use it to lift someone else. The end.